Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Kingdom Says podcast. I am your host, as always, and joining me today are my two usual co-hosts. First off, to my left, you got Kyle Henning. Kyle, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm alive, and we're on the bye week, getting ready to not have to worry about any kind of stress this weekend for Chiefs games, except for who we get to play next weekend. So, doing pretty good right now. It's quite nice of the Chiefs to give me a nice, calm 10 days or so, because maybe a little longer, because family and physically and health-wise, that has not been the case for me as of the last couple of weeks. So it's nice that they've decided to give me at least a bit of a reprieve while the rest of my world is falling apart slowly at the seams. So yeah, it's been good. Now it's time to talk football with you guys, with you gentlemen, and hopefully get back to normal-ish a little bit. So
Yes, sir. And of course, joining us, as always, Arrowhead Tom. Tom, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. Happy to be back. It's been a busy month, and
Yeah.
I've been on the bench a little bit here and there. Had some unexpected things just with work, but I'm doing well, man. Excited to get back into the flow of things, especially with postseason coming up, and you know what happens postseason. So,
Of course.
and that's even more important this year because where it is, and we'll get into all that as we go.
We should get into it right now, actually. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, let's go. Listen, I've got the website.
We should really dive into it again, as always. No,
You wanna
but
talk
it has
about-
been a minute since we have talked to you guys. Obviously, we missed an episode last week. Just busyness, sickness, all that stuff came into play. But we're back, and the regular season is over. Crazy enough. As long as we talked about the season,
It
and
doesn't
then
feel like it.
I know, yeah.
It
this
also
thing,
feels like it shouldn't be, but yet it definitely should be.
yeah, it shouldn't be, but also it's like it definitely, because it's 17 games. It's just like we're spoiled, I think, we need more regular season games, but
No, we don't. Don't be the
you don't need
MLB.
any more. Maybe 18 games.
Jesus, calm down, Garrett.
Yeah, so it's been a wild ride of a season. Chiefs somehow after all of this end up with the number 1 seed,
Guys,
as we all predicted.
We were told, and everybody told us that this team wasn't going to make the playoffs, Bart Scott, and that this team was going to get exposed without Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen, and that, oh God, the receipt list is so long. I could do this for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 days on this podcast. We could just sit here and pull receipts from all the stupid, from all the bad. And look, man, we talked about it when it happened a little bit. They weren't going to be as dominant as they had been in years past, and then they still almost won the freaking division before Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I guess, like, until you actually show us that you can beat us, it's ours until otherwise spoken about.
Pretty much. That's pretty much where
At
we're
least
at.
as the AFC West is concerned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, they put,
Go ahead,
the whole offseason was, the AFC West is going to beat, the Chiefs aren't gonna, all that stuff, and they spent how much money collectively to end up with, I don't know,
$1
just
billion
the
plus?
inevitable.
There was like $1 billion or some nonsense spent this offseason by the teams
very
in this.
very astronomical numbers to try to keep up with the Chiefs. And here we are, still the number 1 seed, still getting done, still having one of the best, one of the most underratedly good seasons of
They
at
went
least the
14-3.
offense. I mean, 14-3. It's like, no, I don't think there's probably, I don't know if you can find a single person who realistically predicted 14-3. I mean, I don't even think
I said 13-4, and I was being optimistic.
Yeah, and it's just somehow, I mean, the wins kept on coming. We figured out, that's the thing. It's like
They
this
lost
team,
one game that they really shouldn't have this year.
Yeah,
One.
this team really found
Game, which is wild.
One game for all of the shit that we threw a fit about, that we had issues with throughout this season, for all the crap and all the stuff. They lost one time to a team they should have beaten in that game. You could argue they maybe lost 2 because one of the 2 other games, but regardless, they lost a game to a team they should have clocked. No problem. That's it.
Which is actually better
They won
than
all the other ones. They won
Usually
everything else.
Yeah. Usually we sneak in 2 of those games where you go, how did we lose to those
Yeah.
guys? Just one this year.
Only
That's
one. It's not bad. Yeah.
With a younger group.
Yeah, a really young group. Not even like on offense and defense. Like just class, 10 draft picks we had this year, and almost all of them contributed like in major factors to the team. Like it's.
And I know it's hard when we go through these seasons and we're in these, and when you're in it, it's hard to back up and see all of it.
Yeah.
But if we go back now from where we started this conversation at the beginning of this season to where we're at currently, basically what did we ask for? We asked for a mid-level defense, and we asked for Patrick Mahomes and the offense to spread the ball around and rebuild and retool and see what happens this year.
Just see what happens.
14-3 with the bye. Home field.
Turns out this is what happens.
Home field against everybody but Buffalo, and oh, by the way, if we do have to play them, and it's in Atlanta. So look, special teams has been frustrating. I get it. 709 rookies will do that to you. It happens, guys. We knew they were going to be growing pains with this roster. Were they going to be in all the same places they have been in the years past? No, because they patched some of those holes. Were they going to be in new places because we had new things and new holes we might have to deal with, like punt return? Which was, by the way, the majority of the special teams issues for most of the year, for the most part. Like, majority of it was just catch the ball, was most of the issue. Look, man, 14-3. They didn't use Mahomes' contract money last year. They didn't go spend $1 bajillion in free agency. They drafted, they developed. Spagnuolo's played rookies. I don't know. Hell is freezing over. Joe Cullen is a monster.
True.
We have got to continue to have conversations about properly setting expectations, because we set them properly at the beginning of the year, and then they ran away a little bit there in the middle, and now we're back to the year, and then everybody's like, oh, hey, they actually do have like top average defense, and like, son of a, that's all we asked for.
Well, I want to talk about expectations. Before the season finished, what was one of the things that we talked about? Before the season began, we talked specifically about the pass rush and the sacks. Do you guys know where the Chiefs finished in the rankings for sacks this year?
I do.
Garrett, do you know?
That guy does right there. No,
the wrong way. All right. Yes. Kyle in the back?
Second with 55.
Second with 55. Now, were some of those on manufactured? Yeah, Philly is just
like 72
a monster.
Or something.
Yeah. Some of those were manufactured on that, but hey, a sack is a sack, right? Doesn't matter how it sacks, right?
I don't give a damn what you want to call the sack. They couldn't get any of the sacks last year, manufactured or otherwise.
Yeah, they were 31st last year?
Dead ass last, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So that's a huge improvement. That's a credit to Joe Cole, and that's a credit to Steve Spagnuolo, especially with all the young pieces on that defense.
Getting that
he also
back
led
in,
the league in batted passes. That's another
getting that back in
fact.
to cover, to get that many sacks, to get that many pressures. Also, it does help that Chris Jones is a freaking alien. So
monster, 15.5 sacks on the season, like tying his career high. He had a good year. Let's just say that.
He probably didn't have as good a year as he could have.
No, I mean he was pretty dominant. He was pretty dominant.
If they had one other half a star guy, like half a superstar, he'd have 20.
Well, yeah, I mean, even if he just had like the D line of the last 6 weeks for the whole season, like he would have probably easily
fully
20.
Fully running unit where they've got all their guys in there and they're throwing touchdown pass attempts to Colin Saunders in the corner.
Yeah, that would have been a great. But I mean, hey, they came around, and I mean, especially these last 6 weeks, like just absolutely lit the other teams up. George Karlaftis has like 5 sacks in the last 6 games. Like absolutely coming on.
One per game for the last 6 down the stretch or something like that.
I think it's 6 in the last 7, but yeah. And that's
something like that.
Listen, that was I think I tweeted this out. Like our frustrations with Karlaftis were peaking, and then I don't know if he just read Twitter or what, but he was just like, "All right, watch guys," and just boom, boom, boom. And it's not.
And that was the thing with him at least for me, as the guy who was probably the most down on the dude when they drafted him of this group of the podcast. I wasn't even disappointed at the beginning of the year. I just said he's about a quarter of a second slow still because he's still transitioning from Big Ten to NFL. And by week 10 and the bye week, bye-bye.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's a force. He's like one of the
cleaning
best
up,
rookie pass rushers in the league.
Fumble recoveries, like, oh, and I was the lowest person on that dude coming into this season of this podcast, and I've been open about that, and he's far exceeded what I expected this year.
Yeah, I think some of it was just we talked about expectations, and our expectations were really high, but he's 21 years old, right? And he was a project. He had a big jump. Like, Purdue is a little bit different than the NFL. And, the good thing is he's getting hot at the right time. You need those young players to step up come playoff time. And I think, and I'm going to blank on where I read about this or heard about this, but one of the conversations, in the Chiefs locker room is, hey, this isn't, you're no longer a rookie. You're a member of the Kansas City Chiefs, and you have to live up to that expectation, right? It's like, it doesn't matter if this is your first year or you're, whatever. You're growing, you're a little like, it's time to take the training wheels off, to quote Dick Vermeil. And I think you see that with some of these young guys as the season has gone on. They've really taken an ownership, and they're starting to form an identity as a unit on defense. And that's a good thing to have going into the playoffs.
Yeah, definitely forming an identity.
Is the back end, is the safety group in that aspect, especially the last 6 to 8 weeks. We've really seen an adjustment from Juan and Brian and Justin in that regard, and how that room seems to be functioning amongst the three of them, the roles, the responsibilities they've each taken, and how they've addressed their play at different levels of that defense. Because that was probably the biggest question mark on this defense at this point in the season, towards the back half of the year, was whether that safety room was going to fully figure it out and get it all the way together. And they seem to have put it together. They've made drastic improvements and drastic adjustments, tackling, ball adjustment, play recognition, getting home, making plays. That a lot of the turnovers and stuff down the stretch here have taken off because these young guys are now not a quarter step slow. They're on time. They're getting their head around the balls. Their hand is in the right place. Their hand was in the right place. Their head wasn't turned, so they were getting beat for that play, or their body was in the wrong spot for that half second for that extra 3 yards, or that George was a half tick late and only got the deflection on the pass and didn't get a pick or didn't get a sack or didn't get the strip or whatnot. And that's a turnover versus a down. So once you see that development start to take place, and these young guys, like Tom talked about, at this point in the season, you're no longer a rookie. This is the NFL. You're a vet. The season is over. You've played a whole year.
Now it's time for
more. There's no more. And
there's no more training wheels. Like, it's either go or blow.
The only thing I think the thing that's probably the most impressive is the fact that there are so many rookies that have never played this many games before.
Oh, yeah. Ever. I mean, it's crazy if you look back on kind of this rookie class of, like, you would have never expected, especially the secondary, how it kind of would have shaped out. Like, before the season, like, we had, our starting 3 corners and L'Jarius, Rashad Fenton, and then Trent McDuffie, and that was, like, kind of set in stone. We thought we were going to be good. And then all of a sudden, Trent McDuffie gets hurt, Rashad Fenton gets traded, and you're asking these younger guys who we had absolutely no expectations of whatsoever. I mean, minor things, like, especially not Jalen Watson, that's for starters, like a 7th round pick.
I thought Josh would be fine, but he
thought Josh might, he might get some rotation, get into the and all of a sudden it's like you're asking a 4th and a 7th round pick to just be starters, and they actually, from some stroke of luck, like, they actually ended up working out really well. And it's a credit to the rest of the secondary unit kind of surrounding them, and I mean, enabling them to kind of let loose and be their own player. Because, I mean, Justin Reed in the backfield had a great year. Thornhill had a tremendous year, especially these past couple weeks. Like, you can see the veteran presence in the back half of that secondary affecting the young guys, and that's a crucial role, I think.
We've got to remember that Spags needs a little bit of credit for getting killed constantly, forever and always. For the part where he has to let those kids learn, and he does, and he takes the brunt of all of you guys screaming on Twitter about how he should be fired in week 6. And he's got 9 rookies, including 3 corners that have never played a snap against elite NFL competition before, and we're out there murdering the guy. It takes a lot to put that much youth and that much confidence in that much youth, especially for a guy that notoriously hates trusting youth. And he has been pretty much open about that sentiment for most of his career. So you've basically asked him to do an entire body switch, identity crisis mode this whole season, and he put together the best defense you've had since they won the Super Bowl. So
That's pretty good.
Maybe we lay off the Spags a little. Maybe
we don't start looking at defensive coordinators for next year. Maybe I think his job might be safe. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, but I don't know. But I do know that the entire defense is shaped up really well, especially ending out the year. And you definitely noticed it in this last game versus Vegas, versus the Raiders. They were all over the field. You're going up against Jared Stidham, who
he just lit somebody up the week before.
He did just light someone up right before. But even still, that's the performance that they put on versus the Raiders in the last week. That's the kind of performance you want to see heading into the playoffs. That's you want to have that good, that good vibe going into the playoffs. You want to come off of a high. Then that's
complete.
Yeah, very complete. Every stage of the
basically
whole team,
lying on the bed, half dead, half awake, watching them walk over the Raiders on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah,
it was quite nice.
Yeah,
it was very nice.
It was a good tune-up. Not too worried about it. It was just
don't get anybody hurt.
Yeah,
Yep.
But that's the thing. It's
get everybody out.
One of the few times this year when we say oh, this is going to be a tune-up game. This is kind of where you can get right. And then this is one of the few times this year that they actually did. They actually figured things out and put together a complete game plan and executed it. Every other time
it goes back to what we were just talking about. I think it goes back to what we were just talking about in terms of, especially on the defensive side, but just as a whole, right? There are so many new pieces and so many young pieces. I think the coaches were careful not to rush, those pieces, in terms of their development and their comfortability and doing some of the different things because the Andy Reid's offense is complex. I know over the offseason somebody there was this one of those little things you just find that was an example of Andy Reid's route tree and the different variations of it and just oh yeah, when I've done a little bit of coaching the junior high level, and it's you have 7-8 routes that you teach those kids.
Yeah.
And looking at Andy Reid's route tree, for those, it's you have 50 route variations for one of your receiver positions, and then your slot receiver runs 60 more, and your wide receiver runs all of them.
By the way, there's some of them that aren't even written freaking down.
Yes. So it's a complicated thing to just walk in and run through these systems, and you have so many new pieces. I think that they wanted to I don't think they ever intentionally leave things vanilla, but they wanted to make sure that they had their foundation in place. And I think they were showing patience. And again, I always want to say, I'm not saying that there's going to be these wacky, crazy plays that they bust out in the playoffs, but I think that they are going to be more effective and more efficient in the playoff because I think that they have, spent the season building a foundation of making sure that these guys on both sides of the ball know where they're supposed to be, know how to get there, know what their job is supposed to be. And I think that's huge. We'll see how it all plays out, but I think that's part of the reason why some of these games have been a little bit closer than what we're used to, is because we've been focused on fundamentals. And I think that's why on the defensive side, you talk about turnovers, same thing, right? Steve Spagnuolo is not out there preaching, go make a play on the ball, go make a play. Not to these young guys. No, he's telling them, get the ball
in the wrong spot. Don't miss the tackle.
Don't give up the tackle. Don't give up the play. And that's, so I think that, I know we talked about the turnover margin, before, but I think that's a big part of it. And to win despite all that is pretty huge. So I feel pretty good heading into the playoffs with how the coaches have approached this season.
We also have to remember, I know we forget how some of these games went, but the team that's the second favorite to win the Super Bowl and out of the NFC, they beat the brakes off of earlier this year. They dog walked San Francisco. Bad. had.
Yeah, that was one of the more dominant performances, that
They
the Chiefs had this year.
hammered Tampa Bay.
And that was early on when the Chiefs still hadn't really figured stuff out.
Yeah,
They still
they
hammered the Niners.
hammered Tampa Bay. I know the game ended up looking closer at the box score at the end, but they
it wasn't.
hammered Tampa Bay.
Yeah.
And there's some of these other games throughout here too that's like, well, they only won that game by 7. Well, yeah, they also scored a touchdown with like 7 seconds left, and there was never within 2 possessions before that. So like,
They also just completely let their foot off the gas or something
so
like that.
and again, like the regular season is long. This team doesn't. We're not the team that has to win by 50 to prove that we win games to win games that we're good now. Did you win? Great. See you next week.
That's really all that matters, especially from history standpoint. Like
the way that Andy does this is very simple: win the West, win the conference, secure your bye, take your title game at home if you can get it without having 3 things, all kinds of weird stuff happen to have it go elsewhere, and then handle business, even if it has to be done in neutral site, and go to the Super Bowl. This is the same recipe they've used since he got here. They just actually able to execute the last part now because they have the quarterback.
Yeah. And speaking of the quarterback, great transition, Kyle. Glad you laid it out for me. Patrick Mahomes sneakily had a career year.
I'll take my money now.
Yeah. That's another MVP year. Pretty much secured.
I'll go ahead and take that anytime.
Yeah.
But I'm waiting for that payout to hit because you bet your ass I put the money down on that one before the season when those odds were come.
So the Chiefs actually released a fun little list of all the things. Patrick Mahomes led in passing yards, passing touchdowns, passing first downs, passes of 25 plus yards, and total offensive yards for the year. Not only that, also setting an NFL record for most total yards in a season.
Passing Drew Brees.
Which that's no easy thing to do. I mean, that's a lot of yards.
What was it? 700 yards?
Yeah, something like that.
It was a lot. Yeah, 50. So it's interesting just if you look at even from the analytics perspective, our analytics crowd, like you look at the EPA. Yeah, you look at the EPA that Patrick Mahomes adds like per play. There's everybody else kind of here. There's a couple outliers, Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, and then I guess I should flip it. But and then right here in the top right, these are the best of the best, and here's Patrick Mahomes all by himself. He looks like me, sitting at my junior high lunch table by myself. Like he's so far away from the other players at his position in this league right now. I get it. I get why people are like, I'm tired. It's the same thing. It's like when Brady and Manning were playing. It's like, so you're so tired of hearing about these guys. It's our turn, guys.
I don't care.
Mahomes, yeah.
It is our turn.
I had to listen to it every friggin' year with Tom. I don't, and he wasn't even that good. He's the most decorated quarterback in NFL history. He's nowhere near the most talented, and you can argue with a wall. It's not even close. And like I said,
and now we have.
And when you go out and you put up those numbers and you do those things, guess what? You get to get the accolades for it because we had to listen to it for 25 years.
So
now we are the villains.
This is unscripted.
So it's so funny to watch Patriots fans not know how to handle Chiefs fans now. It's my favorite thing on earth.
So, if I'm remembering correctly, Aaron Rodgers holds the record for most MVPs with 4. Do you think Patrick Mahomes breaks that by the time he's done?
Yes.
The only reason I say that it may be becoming more difficult to do that is because he's going to have to continue to set bars of things that just don't make sense. And eventually there's got to be a limit. One day there's got to be a top.
There have to be a limit?
Yeah, eventually there does. Like there's eventually there's a top of how many yards, how many downs, how many throws you can physically get into a season. Like eventually there's a limit.
I guess we'll find out.
Maybe. But, I mean, we will maybe find out.
Exactly. But the point is, like, we're to the point now. He's already getting the LeBron, Jordan, Brady treatment for all this crap.
Right.
And it started like 5 minutes
the
after
most valuable player.
Quarterback.
Yeah, it is kind of the MVP award besides Mahomes At least that's how it's been the
They've been
past
doing
couple
this
years.
for 3 years now.
Yeah. It's like, hey, Mahomes, we know that he's great, but there's
Yeah.
And
some
Rodgers
who are
was
just
incredible the last 2 years.
Yeah.
I'm fine with him winning MVP the last 2 years. But if you're going to give it to him in the last 2 years for those performances, when the other guy that's better comes and shows you that he's better, it's his.
Yeah. Far and
I'm
away.
sorry,
I mean,
it's his. And Justin Jefferson had a great year, and Josh Jacobs ran his butt off for Oakland and
Josh
Vegas,
Jacobs,
or whatever you
yeah.
want to call him. And TJ Watt's fantastic, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I don't care. He's the MVP, and it's not close. He should
Only
probably
quarterback-
be unanimous.
Yeah, it's the only quarterback over 5,000 yards, only quarterback over 40 touchdowns this year. I mean, you just pick a metric, right? What do you want to?
He had like almost 400 yards
Didn't
more
he lead the
passing
league
than
in
the next most
QBR
person.
and EPA plus and like every statistical analytical category, but like
Just about. So
Just about. I mean, he topped everything, and it wasn't even like a hard year for him. Like it really, he made
and
it
his
look
best
pretty
weapon
easy.
hasn't caught a touchdown pass in 7 weeks.
Yeah, that's been not great for my pocketbooks, but.
What is if you transition to betting Jarrett McKinnon anytime touchdowns like you should have about week 3?
I should have about a long time ago. You are right about that because Jared McKinnon 9 touchdowns.
9.
Like that's just crazy for a running back.
Between the two of them, and Travis hasn't caught one in a month and a half.
Yeah, and Jared McKinnon. I forget the stat, but that's the most passing touchdowns from a running back. Here it is. Since Marshall Faulk did it in 2001.
Yeah,
so
that's not. There's some
20.
company.
That's
It's
21 years in between.
Yeah,
just something
tossing
that
it
we've just
around.
never seen in the NFL before.
Hey,
and
Tom,
Jared McKinnon rightfully earned AFC Player of the Month.
Faulk set that record with, and which offense that was?
Well, that would have been, let's see, Kirk.
Uh-oh.
That's crazy.
He got hardwired in for all this. We got new internet all set up, and it still cut out on him.
You're back. He's back.
No, that actually wasn't my internet. I am back. However, that was my whole computer freezing. I've got a graphics card issue. So, anyways, as I was saying, live look at the technological challenges of me.
Yeah.
Hey, that's how this goes.
Greatest show on turf: Marshall Faulk, Kurt Warner, St. Louis Rams,
Isaac Bruce, Torrey Holt.
Yes.
It's Hall of Famers on that offense.
One of the most dangerous offenses you've ever seen assembled ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's been fun. McKinnon has been fun.
It has been fun. He has been a very welcome addition, as well as Isaiah Pacheco, of course, who, I mean, he's gotten his flowers plenty of times this whole season, but a 7th-round rookie, leading all rookies in rushing yards, and almost, I mean, he hit, 800-some yards? Like, that's pretty crazy.
He almost yards from scrimmage by a running back for the Chiefs since the Mahomes era has begun. He outstripped Kareem Hunt by like 20 yards.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's saying something.
Not sure which episode it was, but I'm pretty sure one of my proclamations before the season was that Pacheco would be RB1.
He ended up taking that role, mostly due to Clyde not being able to play the last 6 weeks.
Established as Jarek as well, taking that role. But
like I said, I think it's been interesting, and I think it's going to continue to matter that they got multiple contributors from that running back room because Pacheco's only ever played 10 games, ever. It's freaking Rutgers, y'all. He went to Rutgers. They didn't play in bowl games, homies. They didn't have those.
Yeah. Rutgers that's a rough, yeah.
Like, if you don't understand what it looks like the joy difference from what it looks like to be on a winning team, look how Pacheco looked when he got here.
Yeah.
And go watch the most recent episode of the franchise. That looks like a totally different human. He looks like he got plugged in and recharged and a nice spruce up and gave it a bunch of whole maintenance done. He looks all kinds of shiny, bright, and new and happy compared to when he walked out of Rutgers looking like he'd been ridden hard and put away wet.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely sense the positive energy in the building from all the guys. It seems like, they have definitely been gelling. They've definitely gotten.
We got to do some postseason, some end of season awards for the boys. I think we
so.
got to do it.
I think we should.
All right.
What else should we check off here?
I think it's been pretty easy. We'll just get the easy one out of the way. Unanimous MVP.
Tommy Townsend.
League MVP,
Yeah, it's gonna be Pat.
Patrick Mahomes.
That would be number 15.
Not close.
Yeah.
Yep. All right.
All right.
Offensive player.
Now we can get crazy because now she's going to get a little weird because I have a feeling we're going to have some differences of opinion.
Yeah, let's get a couple basic ones out here. Offensive player of the year besides Pat, obviously, because you can't. I mean,
Pat's excluded. Once you're the MVP, you can't be the offensive player of the year. Really, it's really not that fair.
No,
that's a tough one.
I know it's a tough one.
I have mine. I don't know if everybody else is ready to go, but I've got mine.
I think I have mine too. Tom, do you have one?
Yeah, I'll let you guys go first because one of you is probably
okay. Kyle, would you want to take the lead on this one?
I'll go first. I'll take the first one. We just talked about him. It's Jerick McKinnon.
That was gonna be my guy too. That's crazy. I was gonna say Jerick McKinnon.
The OPOY for me, and I don't even. And it's not even the touchdowns.
No,
it's the entirety of what he has brought to that roster from a leadership perspective in the running back room, from a pass blocking perspective. You've watched Pacheco get better as the years progress with pass blocking, which basically only happens with two ways. A little bit of technique and a lot of learning and a want to learn how to pass block. You pass block in the NFL because you want to, not because you're good at it. That's how pass blocking works. And ask lots of running backs coaches. They will tell you, you have to want to block. Jerick McKinnon likes ruining people's lives, specifically linebackers that think they're going to get free shot from quarterbacks.
Loves to block. Let's just put it that way.
His production out of the backfield with the pass catching, he's dropped like 2 passes this year, 3 that I can think of.
Doesn't matter.
Maybe.
Doesn't matter because once he catches, he goes for like 30, 40 yards.
And you know what? And the ability to set up screens and use his blocking, even in the quick games and the screen games, it's allowed them to not suffer some of the stuff we thought they would suffer as much with Tyreek Hill gone. And it just is a fact, man. That's a lot of what Tyreek did in some of these areas where if you got to get 5 yards, he can make a 2-foot cut and create 4 yards of space because ain't nobody trying to run with that.
And he will fight for that extra 5 yards too.
Well, Jerick McKinnon can do a lot of similar things laterally and can make some movements now. They've gotten some contributions for other pieces that they've added. He hasn't been as healthy as I'd like. We'll see how he goes going forward. But for me, Jerick McKinnon's been the piece that's made this offense function as well as it could without Tyreek Hill on it, with what they currently have making it up.
Yeah. My vote, I thought about McKinnon, but I think my vote will go to, and this is probably like another, like we talk about being fatigued by Patrick Mahomes. I think that's the thing with Travis. Yeah.
It's fine. I get that.
He had maybe the quietest 1,300 yard season.
I was going to let somebody else talk about it because he has like 1,400 yards, and we're like, he hadn't scored a touchdown in 8 weeks. What a loser.
Yep, 12 touchdowns was a career high.
He casually just cleared like a bunch of tight end records this year, and just like, that's just Travis Kelce.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th consecutive 1,000-yard season.
How many touchdowns did he even end up with?
12.
Jesus Christ. I didn't even realize he had 12 touchdowns.
Well, he had like, didn't he have two touchdown games or 2 3-touchdown games or something like that?
He had 1 4-touchdown game.
He had a 4 touchdown and a 3 touchdown, if I'm not mistaken.
And a 3,
So again, you talk about but also just his presence on the offense really opens everything else up. And so when we saw that, that Raiders game, they were just like,
what teams did we play? All the teams that know us. What did they do? Not that dude.
They eliminated him and they paid for
it. They were crowding that middle of the field where Travis works, and they were just like, nope. And that opened it up for everybody else, including, I think, Jerick. I'm going to go with Travis. I don't think that's a controversial pick by any means, but
definitely not controversial.
And I don't disagree with the McKinnon pick because I think he's been huge down the stretch here.
Yeah, McKinnon is my pick as well, and just absolutely huge spark plug to the offense. And we only saw him again, like kind of light up in this later half of the season, and that's his prime time. He's meant for November and December football, like he is, and January football. Let's not get crazy here, but yeah, Jerick McKinnon just absolutely like there are at least 2 or 3 games minimum this year that he was kind of like the single-handed like turning point of the game. Some big run or some big like pass or something that he did like sprung kind of the flip. So Jerick McKinnon, I would rightfully say offensive player of the year for the Chiefs. So defensive side of the ball.
Look at our linemen actually. And
let's offensive
linemen.
The Willie Rofe, Brian Waters, Will Shields, offensive lineman of the year.
Your Hall of Famer here.
Yeah. The offensive lineman of the year. Tom, I mean, you are kind of the offensive line guy. If you have any on off the top of your head,
I
we
mean,
are
for
springing these
me,
pretty live.
yeah, for me, it's hands down, it's Creed. I mean, you could pick, I mean, Tooney's great and all that stuff, but Creed, again, so much how we talk about Patrick Mahomes, it's Creed and Jason Kelsey, and then the rest of the league, and
That's fair.
and Creed's a different type of center than Jason Kelsey. Jason Kelsey just is old and knows the game so well, and is just a weird athlete he just moves so well.
Technician.
Yeah, he's again brother of Travis and has the same kind of move. He's like, how is he moving like that? I don't understand. Creed he is, I think, week in, week out, the most dominant guy on that offensive line. I think he is the most consistent, right? And he plays with the physicality, right? Like he's almost the perfect blend of the two players he's between, where Trey Smith is an absolute monster but is inconsistent, and then versus Joe Tooney is maybe not as much of a mauler, but is the model of consistency. And then you have Creed, who gives you both. And so, and I just think that he makes that offense go. He works with Pat on the protections, all that stuff. So I'd go Creed above everybody else.
Okay. I think the Trey Smith thing is an interesting point you bring up. I also don't think he's been healthy most of this year. I don't think him or Orlando both have been healthy most of this year. I think you've seen, as the year has progressed, they've both gotten healthier, and as both have gotten healthier, a lot of the consternation about both of those individuals that we were getting, one far more about one than the other, of course, but has dissipated quite a bit. And for anybody that hasn't been paying attention, Orlando Brown has been friggin' lights out for 8 weeks now. But hey, I think the guy for me is Joe Tooney, and I think we see it again and again and again. He's the best, man. He's the best guard I think I've seen play the position at this point right now. He is the best guard we've got in the league right now. He's a robot. He's automatic. It does not look any different whether his arm is broken or his foot is broken or his toe is broken. It doesn't matter. It's the same every time. And when he's out, they struggle in other areas. It just is, man. He is as good as Trey and Creed and everybody else has been. Tooney is the straw that stirs that drink on that offensive line, and he did it again this year, and he's been immaculately good at it.
Yeah, I would have to also probably lean Joe Tooney over Creed. Both, phenomenal players, but Joe Tooney, according to ESPN, has the highest pass block win rate for guards this season with a 99%. Trey Smith actually third place with 96%, crazily enough.
Which is also dumb, by the way.
Yeah, very dumb. But yeah, Joe Tooney, just the definition of a fundamentally sound offensive guard.
He just goes out there for 60 snaps a game.
You don't have to worry about him at all. And I will say, I almost him being out this year almost leans maybe more towards him, because you can see how much of a noticeable difference there is. And Nick Allegretti did great. But there is a noticeable difference when Joe Tooney isn't on the field. So both great, and honestly, the offensive line had a pretty good year anyways. But yeah, I think Joe Tooney.
To add into that, Creed was 98%. So they were not losing. They were not giving up. Interior pass rush.
They were not. So hopping over to we'll hop over to the defensive side of the ball. I think the offensive skill players have gotten their shine. Defensive player of the year, who do we got? Kyle?
The same answer for the league. He wears 95.
Yes.
And it's not, again, I don't even really, people are going to get, the Chiefs can't win all the big awards. Yeah, well, except for when they actually can, because they actually earned them. All I've heard about for a half decade is how nobody's near Aaron Donald, and then Chris Jones went out and did Aaron Donald stuff all freaking season and put up the same numbers while Aaron Donald wasn't around to do it. And guess what? He's not slowing down at this point. He's hitting his prime. So for my favorite two radio hosts that can't seem to stop talking about trading the man, you're dumb. Shut up. Start there. And two, He's the DPOY of the team. He's the DPOY of the league. Whether he gets it for the league or not is to be seen. He probably won't because they just can't physically help themselves. If they give Mahomes MVP, they'll try to not give Chris DPOY. But it's absurd. They both have earned the awards.
Yeah.
It's Tom, are you leaving Chris Jones as well?
Yeah, no. Yeah, 100%. I don't even have an argument. We can just
Yeah, Chris Jones rightfully is so. I would just honorable mentionly shout out as like a sleeper pick. I would say Carlos Dunlap. Maybe not statistically, he's been like as dominant as Chris Jones, obviously, and as far as the whole scope of the league, obviously Chris should win it. But as far as the actual team, I feel like Carlos Dunlap, similar to kind of how Melvin Ingram was last year, kind of just added a big spark to the team and still showed that he is like a high tier pass rusher, like he has been his whole career. And
Carlos got plenty left in the tank.
Oh yeah. He spent too many playoff lists, years in Cincinnati to make these opportunities not count. So he is definitely making the most of being on the team and contributing in a big way. But yeah, shout out to the entire passes. Yeah, he led the league in number one, and and last week he actually took that lead from George Karlaftis. So
I think here's where the tough couple are going to, the last three awards here are pretty much going to be the tough three. You got your offensive rookie, your defensive rookie, and you have your unsung guy.
Yeah, I'm about to say the underrated guy of the year. We're definitely.
And I think for me, I'll just go ahead and do that. I think I'm going to do the underrated guy first, and I'll just get it out of the way. Okay. It's going to sound real weird. Andrew Wiley.
I don't know if I can agree with you on that one, Kyle.
You can not agree with it all you want, but go look at what he's done this year. And by the way, we haven't talked about him hardly at all, which is exactly what the hell you want out of a right tackle that wasn't supposed to be starting. He was never supposed to be a right tackle in this league, y'all. He was a guard.
I mean, we've talked about that ad nauseum, but we do talk about the offensive lineman we do like. So
Wiley did finish in the top 10% in pass blocking win percentage. So
yeah, he did. He quietly put together a really surprising season at right tackle again. And
I can't hate it. I can't hate the pick too much. I can't.
So. Just for an unsung guy that's not going to get a lot of love in a lot of areas on this team, he's supposed to be your weakest link, and we barely talked about him.
Yeah. Tom, for unsung hero, we'll start with that one since Kyle led with that.
And you can go offense, defense, special teams.
Yeah, this is
whatever.
I'm gonna go with unsung. He's very familiar to the fan base, but I think he had a bigger role this year than what people recognize, and that's Colin Saunders. And so, remember Turk Wharton went down early in the year, and that rotation with Chris Jones is important. And being able to, you start to see later in the year, like in some of the pass rushing situations where they kicked Chris Jones out to end, and some of that is because they trusted Colin, to provide some pass rush. And I just think he made some plays, and he really took a bigger step. I think he has a case to come back next year and see a similar or even an expanded role. I think he might have taken Derek Notty's job because both those guys are in contract years. And so I think that you have a young guy who you're banking on his athleticism, and he finally has kind of put it all together. So I think it's almost like a most improved player, and I think that's where my mind went, was Colin Saunders. It just
and
took
this
a big
isn't
step.
a knock on Notty, and I'm so happy that Tom brought Colin up because I've been banging the Colin Saunders drum for like 3 years now. So, but this is the difference between Colin and Derek. Mm-hmm. There's a little bit of swag to it with Colin that doesn't exist with Notty, and there is pass rush that does not exist with Derek. And I like Derek. He's been great for his time here. He's been serviceable in his role. That day has come. They don't need that anymore.
Yeah.
It's Colin, and
it
sucks for Turk because Turk got hurt, and I think it probably was Turk leading into this year more so than Colin. But man, Colin decided to show up, and he showed up, and he showed up, and he showed up. And like I said, there's just a little fire. There's that attitude. There's that leadership. There's that I don't have a problem talking. We saw the Twitter fingers work. We know those use. We can use those. Yep. So, man, I'm so glad that
not a bad pick
getting run finally.
Yeah, you guys both have some great picks. For my unsung hero, I kind of have two. I'm gonna cheat a little bit because first off, we haven't shouted out this individual, um, but he has rightfully earned had a fantastic year, a Pro Bowl caliber year, and even an All Pro year as far as the NFL PA's first team All Pro. Tommy Townsend,
I knew you
punter.
were going there.
Yeah, he.
Keep talking about the punting. Only talk
we can-
about the punting.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I should preface this with is that the kicking operation, who knows what's wrong? Really, none of us are experts enough to know. There have been every kind of opinion, but as far as the pure punting goes, he's been bombing balls this year, placing them inside the 5, like dropping them on a dime. Like, there's a reason he's a Pro Bowler. There's a reason he's gotten all these accolades this year because he's legitimately, especially in a year where the offense has kind of floundered in a couple games and kind of lost their way. Like, him coming out there and just flipping the field and controlling, like giving the defense a bonus, 10, 20 yards that you'd get.
He set the record, didn't he?
I think he did. Yeah, I think he has
The net record
the net record. Yeah,
for
over
the year. He had like the longest average punt in NFL history for a net, I think, this year because he was just
destroying ball, and like you don't realize how big of an aspect or how big of a factor that is until you don't have a good punter. Which luckily for the Chiefs, we really haven't had that transition. He was, I don't know. You could say his first year was kind of rough, but yeah, he is definitely making a noticeable difference to the team. So shout out Tommy Townsend, and then my real pick for. Yeah, that's exactly. My real pick, I would say, is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster. And that might be kind of more of an obvious one, but Juju quietly came in here, a part of this new receiving core. He was obviously expected to kind of be the wide receiver 2 in a sense, if you want to call him that. But out of everybody, like he has just consistently put up the most yards, been thriving in his role. It's not like MVS where you kind of have the ups and downs or he's not Justin Watson, obviously. Like, he just came in, kind of put his head down. We didn't really hear much. I mean, we saw a lot of TikTok, or we saw a lot of content and stuff, TikToks and all that from Juju, but really, you didn't, like, have to talk about him a lot as far as, like, bad plays. Like, he just quietly showed up to every game, caught a good amount of passes, had a couple touchdowns, and had a quietly good year. And we've talked about it all year. Like, he is by far and away the one receiver who you would want to return to this group next year. So both those guys, I think.
Did you know he had 100 targets?
I did not know that he had 100 targets. That's but it makes sense.
I didn't know he had 101 targets.
Because like sneakily, you just don't even think about him. But it's like he was a chain.
He had 930 yards.
That's a lot actually. That's almost 1,000 yards. How many? Does it say how many first downs he had or anything like that? Because I feel like that's one of his bigger roles that he had this
47.
47. Okay. Yeah.
47 first downs.
Because that's like kind of was his role this year almost, is just he was moving the chains. Like
Travis,
if you needed a reliable
team with more.
Right. Like if you needed a reliable option to convert for a first down, like it's either Travis or Juju, and you're comfortable with both of them.
I also would have never guessed that him and Travis would have been within 0.2 yards of each other on yards per catch, because Travis had 1,338 yards on 110 catches and Juju had 933 on 78 for a 12 and 12.2 average respectively. Like, just consistent, nothing flashy, nothing crazy, nothing. Just did his job, just did his thing.
Showed up and did his job better than almost every other person in the receiving group. So shout out Juju, shout out to all those guys. Let's end this off here. One last award. We'll just combine rookies of the year into one award.
No. Let's just give the offensive rookie of the award to Isaiah Pacheco. He's the only. There's 3 offensive.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, there's one offensive rookie. Isaiah Pacheco wins that award. Yeah. Defensive rookie of the year. Then that's where you have some question marks.
I'm not going first on this one.
Tom, do you want to take the
Trent McDuffie?
Yep.
I know he missed time, but I was just looking into some of his other stuff. When you look at his some of the analytics and some of the coverage breakdowns and all that stuff, he doesn't qualify for a lot of the big measurements or whatever because he doesn't have enough snaps. Right. But if you put him in on some of those graphs and some of those analysis, guess who's in the top part of the league? We're talking elite shutdown type
Oh yeah,
corner.
same conversation as Sauce. Same conversation as all these guys that are.
And it's very quiet. He's very quiet because again he missed some time, but holy and from like from day one, this organization has just that you wouldn't know that he's a rookie. They've not treated him like a rookie. They just the expectation is he's gonna come in and shut down people, and he's done that. And yeah, he's given up some plays here or there, but like everybody gets got, every once in a while. I can't there's not been a like game where he's been beaten and abused and that type of thing.
I
Right?
can count on one hand the number of reps I've watched him lose this year just out.
Yeah. I mean, again, he's had a couple of reps where it's like, oh, that was a 50-50 ball, could have went every way or whatever. But he's put the clamps on people, and the small sample size. But I think this defense, when you really think about it, started to pick up more and more once he got into the lineup later in the season. So I'm going with Trent. I know there's a lot of choices, but yeah, Trent McDuffie's my pick.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to lean that way as well. The defensive rookies had a great year. They really did, especially kind of the roles given to them. We saw a lot out of the defensive rookies, obviously, especially with McDuffie missing all that time. But yeah, like to see, I feel like days in the NFL, you just don't really see rookie cornerbacks who just come onto the scene and just are immediately kind of a lockdown corner. Maybe you won't have to call him a lockdown, but immediately a top tier starting corner. And that's exactly what Trent McDuffie was at the gates. And yeah, we haven't really looked back since. It's nice to have a reliable corner option that you don't have to talk about very much. He gets, he gets plenty of his play. And yeah, I'd say he had a pretty good year, especially given all the circumstances. Kyle.
Yeah, that's all fun and fine. Give me George. And look, Trent's fine. He's been great. He's also been exactly about what I expected him to be. Some of that is you're guilty of. I had actual expectations for you, and I didn't for your counterpart. That sucks. The other part of it is you did not play all season. As unfortunate as that may be, you missed 6-8 weeks or whatever it was with that hamstring and that thing. Now, Arizona is completely to blame. Can't wait to play a Super Bowl there and have to deal with that turf again in like a month. But here we are. So, and it's the same conversation. That's what claimed Butker's start to the season, which is why that portion of that operation has been a bit of a helter-skelter mess and everything else. So while it's not necessarily Trent's fault, I think the award has to go to George. He played every game. He made himself known in every game. He's, I think, second or third in the league for batted passes and like fifth in the league and like second or third amongst rookies or something stupid like that, because there was just an arrangement of rookies swatting balls at the line of scrimmage this year. Him, Drake Jackson, the kid out of USC, and somebody else, all three just having a field day of swatting the ball down the line of scrimmage. He ended up with like 7 sacks or 6 sacks on the year, fumble recoveries, turnovers. And it's not just that he's getting counting stats. They're big plays in big moments in big portions of these games. He's generating pressure. He's winning one-on-one matchups that they're getting because Chris Jones exists and because Frank Clark exists and because these guys exist. But guess what? We didn't have nobody that win one-on-one matchup at all last year. Not one friggin' time. That's why we had like 12 sacks last year that didn't come from our secondary. Okay? George Karlaftis did far more than I would have ever dreamed he was going to do year one. All he has to do is continue to half step down the pathway he's on, and he's going to be just fine for this organization for a long time to come. For me, he's been reliable, dependable. He's the guy. He's been there all year. And he's the piece that needs to play the best in the postseason for this defense to hit its top ceiling in the postseason. That's the other part of it.
That's fair.
Completely agree on that. Yeah.
Both of them had,
has to be there.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to look back at two, first round picks, both being on the defensive side and both just actually having like very big contributions to the team this year. So great to see. It's great to have a young defensive core to build around with those two guys and everyone else who has stepped up this year for the defense, especially the rookies. But yeah, I think that's going to about wrap it up for our end of season awards here. We've got a lot of football still to be played. Hopefully this year, football is not over. We have wild card weekend, super wild card weekend. Sorry, I almost forgot the super wild card weekend coming up here. Chiefs luckily are not playing in it. We have the bye, so
we enjoy watching Super Wild Card Weekend. We do not enjoy
yes,
participating in Super
we
Wild
can
Card
all
Weekend.
tune into the Nickelodeon game, whichever one that is, and really enjoy ourselves, kick back our feet, and
So the
Gotta
Jags.
be the Chargers Jags game, right? Brandon Staley's coaching. He belongs on Nickelodeon for all those clown decisions.
Ooh, all right, let's
yeah. So
take
great
this
year,
one for it.
guys. Thank you all so much for tuning in with us this season. We still got a lot to go. We've got a lot planned. You'll probably see us again sometime before. Well, you will definitely see us at least one more time before the Chiefs play again. Maybe even twice. Maybe even
We'll see.
who knows? Who
We
knows?
may,
But
we
we
may bless
got
your timeline a little more often. We'll see
One
how
yeah.
podcast every day for the next week. Buckle up.
Tom would do it for only draft talk. But but yeah, Chiefs Kingdom, just kick back, relax this weekend, enjoy some good football, scout some potential opponents.
Jim Irsay hire Eric Bieniemy after the season's over. Thank you very much.
Boom, do that. Yeah. And yeah, should be a good 2023 to start here. Are we talked to them in 2023? Has it been 12? Okay. I didn't think it was that.
Something about that. It's 23 now, so if we
It is
haven't,
23
it is.
now.
If it isn't,
Yeah.
was.
Almost. Yeah. Anyways, though, but yeah, thank you all so much for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on social, Garrett720, at KThen16, at Arrowhead Tom, and at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And we will talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.